Did you reach into the everything black people did was great and everything white people did was wrong, grab bag and pull some shit out your ass that don't make no sense? And I don't mean to be disrespectful, Anthony, but it's just that what you're saying here, if you are a person who believes in the Bible, it makes absolutely no sense and demonstrates that you don't read your Bible and definitely does not understand any historical facts about it. And of course, because you say that Europeans rewriting the history of the religion, you're going to say that everything that I'm saying now is just European teachings. So let's just see if everything I say is European teachings. So my guy here says that the Hebrew Bible was given to Bathsheba by King David, who took it to Ethiopia. You sure you mean Bathsheba? You sure you mean Bathsheba? Maybe you're thinking about Solomon and the Queen of Sheba and not Bathsheba. But you doubled down on the idea that it had to be David and Bathsheba, because you then say, after you make the statement that the oldest Hebrew isn't the oldest Christian Bible, book that she took to Ethiopia isn't the oldest Christian Bible, it's the oldest Hebrew Bible that comes from King David of Israel, who knew. So you double down on the King David part again. So if you're doubling down on the King David part, then I cannot make the assumption that you made a mistake and you actually meant Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, who would be called Makeda. So it's not Bathsheba, but Makeda, as far as the Ethiopians are concerned. Also utilizes the name Queen Candace, was another name for it, but Queen Candace is more of a title. That's based on what the Ethiopian people teach themselves in writing their history, because they've never been conquered by Europeans, so they have their own history. But you say King David again, so I have to assume you actually mean Bathsheba. And Bathsheba has never been to Ethiopia. There's no information in the Bible, outside the Bible or any other place, that would suggest that Bathsheba, the one who King David saw taking a bath on the rooftop, who was married to Uriah, he said, give me that woman because she looked good and I want some of that poom poom. Got it. She got pregnant, tried to trick Uriah into coming home. Uriah wouldn't go home and have sex with his wife so that everything would be all right and he can cover it up. Uriah then goes and he's sent back to the front. They set him up to get murdered. He gets murdered. David brings Bathsheba into the house, marries her. They have the baby. God says that David has did an evil thing. So instead of punishing David and Bathsheba, this God kills the baby. Kills the baby. Now, after this God kills the baby, David mourns, and after he's mourned, then he goes back and everything's fine, and they have Solomon with Bathsheba. There's nothing in this story that Bathsheba actually goes down to Ethiopia. So I was hoping that you was making a mistake in thinking that it was Solomon, but no. So Bathsheba, Ethiopia, absolutely nothing. And then say that King David knew that the Assyrians were coming and the Babylonians were coming in the 7th century BCE. That would mean that King David must have had some type of foresight that was 200-300 years older, because if was a fifth, King David was that guy, then one, the King David episode had to have happened somewhere around 900 to 800 BCE, which would be the 10th and 9th century. Now the Assyrians came in the 8th century, not the 7th century. So that's a little bit off, but that's okay. We all make those kind of mistakes. But King David had to have seen these Assyrian people and knew that the Babylonians were going to come and wreck and take claim. No, dude, you're making up stuff. Now, to give you a little bit of actual history concerning the Ethiopians and how even the story about Queen Candace or Makeda or Queen of Sheba, whichever name you want to use, never took a Hebrew Bible to Ethiopia, is you can look at the history of Ethiopia. Don't go, if you listen to the Orthodox Ethiopian Church, of course they have their made up bullshit about the queen coming down, Makeda, and she birthed in Menelik, and Menelik going up and becoming the king, and Menelik becoming the king, going up and seeing his father Solomon and bringing back the Ark of the Covenant and all this sort of thing. That is just like biblical history is not supported by anything in archaeology, and actually archaeology teaches differently, and the history of Ethiopia teaches differently. According to the history of Ethiopians by the Ethiopian, the history of Ethiopia by the Ethiopians, the Axiom Empire also known as the Demit Empire, also with the Sabaeans, never were a Jewish kingdom, never had a queen whose name was Makeda, never had a king Menelik. Those were not people that existed in their own history. They were polytheistic from the moment that we have any historical data about them all the way up until 330 CE. They were polytheistic. There was never a Jewish kingdom. There was never a tribes of Jewish people that had any prominence enough to be remembered in history in there. I'm not saying that no Jewish person ever came to Ethiopia, but there was never the situation that is in your Bible where Queen of Sheba, Queen Makeda, came down and established this Jewish dynasty, this Solomonic dynasty. So yes, I'm saying that your boy who claimed that is wrong, is 2 left feet. He used that as a political power, and it started the Rastafarians. Yes, it's bullshit, but he believed it, and the people believed it. Second is the fact that there is absolutely nothing. It did not happen where in the New Testament you had a Ethiopian eunuch who met one of the disciples on the road and took it back and told the people who the king and queens of the Axiom Empire, and then they converted the people into Christianity. That didn't happen either. That he didn't have the scroll of Isaiah. That didn't happen. And here's the funny part about that. Your Bible, the oldest ones always say the Ethiopian, right? But the problem is that they didn't become known as Ethiopia until around the 5th century. They became known as Ethiopia. Prior to that, they were the Axiom Empire. They were the Axiomite. Even called themselves Abyssinians for a little while, but they have never called themselves Ethiopian until like the 5th century CE. So why would a 1st century eunuch be called Ethiopian? Now the Greek word for that might be Ethiopia means burnt face, but that would be a description of someone. But that is the name. So, hey, and since the New Testament is written in Greek, with the Septuagint and stuff like that, then yeah, I give you that one. Yeah, but there is no way in hell, in the 3 levels of hell, did King David give Bathsheba a Torah and she took it and to Ethiopia. It just didn't happen, man. I mean, if y'all are going to come on this page to argue the point, it could take you, it would have taken you no more than about 10-15 minutes of research to realize that all of your statements are wrong. I mean, I understand it may take some people a little bit longer because you have to know where to look and you have to know what kind of questions to ask, especially when you're using the internet. You have to know the kind of questions you're asking, formulate the question to get the most realistic answer, well, the most exact answer that you desire, and then you have to look at the source that you're getting the information from in order to know whether or not it's valid information. So, but still, once you've mastered that, it should only take you about 10 minutes to have researched this information and recognize just incredibly how wrong everything that you said is. Like, there's not one right thing in here other than the fact that King David and Bathsheba were together, after he forced her to marry him and forced her to have sex with him and killed her husband and then this God decided to punish him by killing their baby and then allow him to marry her and then birth Solomon, and it's supposed to be the great dynasty that the Ethiopians also claim, which they have 0 historical accuracy in claiming that. But hey, man, you're gonna claim that it's European, but everything I just told you ain't got nothing to do with European. Saw the Ethiopians, and they were never conquered by the Europeans. So what you got on that? That's why their history is their history. They wrote it because they weren't conquered by the Romans. They weren't conquered by anyone. So, to the victor writes their story, and they wrote their own story. Yeah. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because all this types of racism stuff is useless, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.